Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have an amazing returning guest, Kensi Evans. Love having her on the show. And I just really wanted to pick her brain again. I just feel like this itch to have you on every so often. As you know, I've had you on quite a bit. But today she's going to speak to us about honest, gentle parenting. And I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit. So tell us a little bit about that. And for those listeners that don't know who you are, can you give us a little recap on you?
Yes. Okay. So I'm Kenzie. We are currently living in Costa Rica. I have four boys, and I would not claim the title of expert in parenting because I don't know what I'm doing. And so, hence, trying to figure it out. My husband and I have been married for 13 years, and it is always an adventure. So,
Background for those that don't know, I met Kenzie when we went and lived as a family in Costa Rica for a month, and she is just, you can tell right away, like kindred spirit, beautiful soul, so much fun to pick your brain, and so glad to met you. That like you're the reason, a large part of the reason why I want to just go country hopping and meet all the beautiful people and all the beautiful places. So thank you for adding to my adventure.
that is such a kind compliment. I feel the same way about you, Kendra. It was like just instant friendship, so easy. You're so easy to talk to. So I think that's why so many people connect with you. It's like we get on here and it's like a hangout session, pretty much. So
I absolutely love it. Well, okay. So tell us a little bit. You said you're not an expert in parenting, and I would say that anyone that says they're an expert in parenting, I don't know that I would really trust them. First of all, because
correct.
can you really be an expert in parenting?
I think the people that I would trust if they said they're an expert in parenting, but then they like in the same sentence own that the field is constantly evolving and we're constantly growing. Okay, then maybe I'll like trust their advice. But I mean, I'm definitely not an expert. Like I didn't get my degree in it or anything. The only thing that I can offer is my own personal experience and just kind of evolving as a parent myself. I would say that I grew up, I don't know how to explain it because it wasn't like my parents were super physical parents. Like, I don't remember really getting spanked a ton or maybe grounded, but for the most part, it wasn't huge for me. But I do remember struggling with that mindset of what is the right way to parent. Like, I did utilize spanking sometimes in my earlier parenting with my older kids because I didn't know what to do. And this idea of gentle parenting sounded completely unrealistic. It sounded like voodoo, hippy dippy parenting for parents that have one child, right?
Mhm.
And so I was resistant to the idea at first. Then I think you and I talked about this book in one of our other episodes, but helped me to my perspective a little bit, the No Drama Discipline book. What I loved about that is when we consider the idea of gentle parenting, maybe there's no consequences, right? Or we just let our kids get away with anything. What I learned from that book, No Drama Discipline, is that's not the case. There are still consequences, being more natural consequences, letting kids learn from their own mistakes. So they don't want to wear a jacket to school and it's freezing. You ask them and tell them, hey, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be really cold at recess and be able to play with your friends as much. Are you sure you want to make that choice? And they still make it and discover they don't like being cold at recess, right? And so, or you have a stubborn kid that will continue doing that just to prove their point, but they live and they learn from it. And it's like learning to let go of things that we don't have to necessarily take on as parents, which is hard because I think in this world, part of the issue is that we have been told that we're responsible for every single little tiny action that our children take, right? And so we feel a lot of that responsibility that also I don't want to get that confused with like being negligent and not caring for your child. So there is a fine balance. The idea that I really, really love in gentle parenting is kind of the golden rule standard of if the roles were reversed, which oftentimes they are, that our children talk back to us, they ignore us, they do these things. And how does it make us feel? We don't like it. We get frustrated, but we do the exact same thing to our children, not from a shaming place, but more of just a self-reflective place of like, would I be receptive to this sort of feedback right now? Like if someone were to be like, Kenzie, pick up your shoes right now and go put them in there. Hurry, we're going on late. And like jumping down my throat. I think that I would be a lot less responsive to that. And so I think it's interesting how we, as adults, we have these expectations that we be treated kindly and with respect. But then it's almost like our little humans, we forget that they are little humans that have thoughts and feelings and their own experiences. And so I think I don't know. For me, it was hard because I felt a lot of guilt and shame to get to this place. Prior to getting to this place, I felt a lot of guilt and shame because I had 3 babies, 4 and under, and I was drowning. Like I it was so hard. And so I wasn't as patient as I would have liked to have been. But that doesn't mean that I'm bad or that my kids are bad or that this gentle parenting approach is wrong. It just means that the circumstances were really hard and there can be mercy for both and accountability. I can look back and allow space for my kids to be like, Mom, I did not like when you yelled at me, and be like, you're absolutely right. I would not want to be yelled at. That wasn't fair of me, right? And remove the shame from it and instead just take accountability that, yeah, like I agree. I wouldn't want to treat you that way either. And I totally did. So that's unfair, but it's hard to get there because I think there is somewhat of an expectation of perfection in parenting. At least that's what I felt. So I'm kind of more at this place where I have older kids. My youngest is 4, and it's easier, right? Because they're more reasonable. But I do think that it takes a lot of intentionality. I think that was not the focus of my upbringing. I don't know if you had this within your LDS upbringing, Kendra, but ours was like you get married as fast as you can and you have as many children as you possibly can. And I think when that is the goal, parent-child relational elements can be lost because I think that is kind of what happened in my young parenting years. And I wouldn't do it any different because I have my 3 sweet older kids that I do not regret, but I will just be taking more accountability for some poor parenting choices. But this idea of popping out as many as you can and the reality that we are limited. We need sleep. We need time to rejuvenate. And when you have children that young and that close together, the reality is that we're limited, right? And I think especially too, I think there was also this cultural element of doing it on your own, serving everyone else. So then not only are you beyond burned out at home, but you're also expected to give to everyone else too. And that I can totally attest to that being a reality for me too. And so I think just having the awareness that parenting does need to be intentional if you want to go about it in a gentle way, and that can be challenging sometimes. Also, the gentle parenting part is there are consequences for my kids, but then there's accountability on my part. I don't have to do it perfect, but when I do make mistakes, I take accountability. I don't blame it on my kids like, well, if you would have just listened the first 3 times, then we wouldn't be here, like instead of being like, you're right, I lost my cool, I was impatient, and that's on me. So I'm sorry, and just taking accountability. So that's something that I love about the gentle parenting concept is consequences for kids and their choices, yes, but not these ones that we kind of impose on them that can be harmful. And then on the parent side, taking accountability when we make mistakes. So
That's so well said, so beautiful. And also just how you are raw and authentic about your experience because It's true. Like it's just so messy. I actually did an episode on this morning on that rigid stance we can sometimes take. And I did the same thing too. I didn't get married as young as any of my sisters, but still by the world standards, pretty young. And wanted to have them really close. They didn't all come that way because there's different things, but I just wasn't my best self. And I don't think any parent really is when we're raising a bunch of young children. But it is so nice now because I am getting more feedback from my kids that I can implement. So I was not my best self. I was just learning as I went. Honestly, I don't think I was a terrible parent, but I definitely didn't nail it. I was just surviving through most of that. And now I'm picking up the pieces. It is unfortunate. I think about what advice I give my daughter who's about to go to college, how I can help her not make those same mistakes. She's going to make them, right? But thinking about everything I went through and experienced, giving yourself the benefit of the doubt, but recognizing that most of the parenting that you're going to do that is going to be really memorable to them is going to be the part where you're running on fumes, where you're just in survival mode, where you're a mess. And they're going to remember those parts, unfortunately. And then you're going to spend the rest of your parenting apologizing for those parts and trying to make amends. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, and I think that is true because there's, like, the research that's been done, and I wanna say it's by the Gottmans, where it
Mhm.
says, like, 1 negative comment, it takes, like, 5 to 7 positive comments to negate a negative comment, and I'm like, "Okay, that makes sense then," right? Like, if and we can be doing great in a lot of ways, but if we consider that we're also limited in time, and if we have multiple children, so we may be, like, doing it good, but if we come back to this kid and it seems to consistently be that we're getting on their case or something, we're not negating those negative comments as much as maybe is needed. And so I think, honestly, that used to feel depressing to me, kind of like the idea of having to apologize for my parenting mistakes. But I think the work that I have done leading up to this instead has been like, that's actually a gift. Our adult children are coming, and them expressing that first shows that you've created a safe space where they can give you feedback. Even if it's not the feedback that we would love to hear, them coming to us, that's a win, right? The opportunity to make repair is a gift, right? The idea that we're supposed to have it figured out is just a fallacy. Each of us are doing this. This is the first day for each of us. You and I having this conversation, this is the first conversation that we have had like this in these exact circumstances, you know? And so it's a constant learning process. And so I think when we think of it like that, rather than I should have had it figured out. Instead, like, okay, now that my child has the vocabulary to express to me how they didn't like that or they didn't appreciate it. And it is relational to receive their feedback and say, yeah, I hear you and I can understand that. And going forward, I would like to apply that to our relationship. So thank you for being relational and giving me that instead of considering it as like a critique or condemnation of us and our parenting, instead of looking at it more as like, this is us being relational and it's a shift in our dynamic, right? As they get older and they are better able to express themselves.
That is such a perfect way to put it. It's almost like a stepping stone, this natural progression and preparing them for that too. Like, hey, it's gonna be sometimes messy for you. You're definitely not gonna have it figured out. I don't have it figured out even at this stage. And that's okay. And as long as you are, making amends, making restitution, not living in that pride of like, oh no, or pointing fingers, but like, just being real about it. I love what you're sharing with us. What are just some last couple pointers you can give parents when they feel stuck? Maybe it's in those early stages. Maybe it's even right now and they don't know how to make amends or apologize. Like, what would you say to them?
Think first of all, recognizing if you feel that guilt and shame coming up, it's because you love your children, because you don't want to fail them, right? And so I think being able to distinguish, like, why is this here? And because our brain is trying to protect us, right? And so like the shame is like, don't let us see the harm that we've caused because we love you and that was not our intent. And so then when we can get to that place of like, oh, I feel this because I love my children and my intent is to show that I love my children. So if I can stay grounded in that rather than like the lie that my shame is telling me that I'm a terrible, awful parent. I didn't have that information before. So now I do. And if I can stay grounded, then it makes it a little bit easier to swallow because it's not necessarily like, this is my identity. I'm a parent who failed and messed up, but rather, okay, I can separate myself from what my child is telling me and recognize it's because I love them that this matters so deeply to me. But it's not all of who I am, right? And I think the last thing would be something that has been kind of huge for me is recognizing that I chose to have my children, not the other way around. My children did not choose to be born, right? And so kind of putting it back into this realm of responsibility, like me as the adult, as the parent, like I chose this. And so putting these unrealistic expectations onto our children, like you should respect me, respect your elders, this can be unfair. And I don't exactly know the answer. Like I'm still working through this is real time, folks. But the idea of what are things that I place on my children? It's like, guys, we got you all these things. Why can't you just be grateful? And it's like, wait a minute, 1 second. As a parent, I signed up for this. Like I knew that I would be having children. And I mean, we don't fully grasp it, but you're going to get your kids gifts and things like that. A child doesn't come into the world knowing that. It's something that they're learning. And it's interesting to me, especially as like Christians, that we profess of an all-loving God who wants to give us everything and how he invites us to come to him with all of our dreams and desires, right? And I know that he doesn't give it to all of us, but he also doesn't punish us for wanting. But I have seen in myself this like, ugh, can't you just see how grateful or like how great I am for getting you this stuff? Like, just have gratitude. And instead of being like, oh, okay, this is normal. And it's even in me as an adult, like my adult relationships that I believe in. And even with them, like that reverse psychology, like I have an expectation for them to give me something that I want because they don't have something that they wanted me. It's like just kind of eye-opening. And so I think my invitation would be for people to kind of first work on removing the shame so that they can begin to see inconsistencies in their own patterns and the expectations that we place on our children that we maybe don't hold ourselves accountable to as well. So it's hard though, and it's humbling. So it's a process.
Yeah, very much exactly what parenting is. Stay tuned. Also, we're going to do part 2 of this, and she's going to talk about this in marriage as well. But yes, I would say the 2 most humbling things ever are marriage and parenting. So thank you so much, Kenzie, for being on the show today and just speaking to this a little bit, because it's something, honestly, I don't think we can hear enough about. And it helps to hear that, like, maybe we're not killing it, like just awesome at everything. And maybe we're not as terrible as we think either. And there's hope. And I really appreciate that perspective that you're giving us today. So thank you. And I'm excited to hear more about what you have to share with marriage. So stay tuned for that as well. Don't forget to check out our website for our new courses. And we will see you back here in just a few days, because Mondays and Thursdays have all new episodes. So we'll see you then. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.